Hello, I am your fascia, the largest sensory organ you've never heard of. If I were to ask you to name the body's largest sensory organ, you would probably say the skin. It turns out that your fascia system holds that title now, given the recent revelation that the fascial system is an internal organ with many circulatory, regenerative, and sensory functions. Over 80% of your body is made up of this beautiful and potent landscape. Before diving into this in-depth conversation and a few practical follow-up articles, I just want to pause. What are the implications in your life and for your health knowing that? What comes to mind with respect to how you move, train, rest, age, and experience pain? Fascia has 10 times more proprioceptive receptors than muscle tissue. The term proprioception refers to your body's ability to sense its own position, movement, and special interactions. Your highly innervated fascia is a tissue most of us have never consciously thought about. It is more densely wired for sensation than the muscles you have trained and thought you were relying on for balance and precision. This is now established, peer-reviewed hard science. In China, at least 2,500 years ago, this understanding was the basis for acupuncture, and the earliest approach to Qigong called Tao Yin. In the West, up until recently, and for at least 500 years, anatomists dissecting the human body treated fascia as a simple membrane. They peeled it away to get to the real anatomy, made of muscles, nerves, organs, and bones. Underneath, what they discarded was, in fact, a system of extraordinary functional intelligence. What fascia actually is. Roughly 70 to 90% of fascia is pure collagen, with remaining tissues being made up of elastin and cells, like fibroblasts. Collagen is non-living tissue in the conventional metabolic sense because it is non-calorie dependent, and it is almost entirely protein. At its most basic, fascia is the extracellular matrix, the structural gel-like fabric that exists outside of your cells. Approximately 80% of all tendons, ligaments, and fascia are composed of the same type of collagen. This matters because it shows how much your body is a living protein network. When speaking of fascia, we are also speaking of tendons and ligaments. They are the same material deployed in different structural configurations. There are many types of collagen in your body. The most abundant, called type 1, forms the densely packed fibers of tendons, ligaments, and deep fascial layers. Type 3 collagen is more elastic and pliable and is found in your organs and skin. The ratio of collagen types within every one of your body's tissue determines its mechanical properties, like stiffness, elasticity, and load tolerance. Your fascia organizes the almost infinite layers and lines of your muscles. There is the endomysium, which wraps each individual muscle cell. The perimysium wraps groups of cells into bundles called fascicles, and the epimysium, which sheathes the entire muscle belly. These are all fascial layers. Without this scaffolding, muscle tissue would have no structural coherence. A popular image suggests that without fascia, your muscles would look like pulled pork. Beyond muscle, your fascia also wraps around your veins, arteries, and nerves. It encases your organs. It occupies the space between every muscle group and between every distinct layer of tissue in your body. It is, quite literally, everywhere. A near infinite and continuous body-wide web of structural and communicative tissues and gels. The fluid medium in which collagen fibers are suspended is called the ground substance, which is the 60% of you that is water, sort of. Ground substance is a gel-like matrix of water and highly charged and elastic proteins like glycosaminoglycans and proteoglycans. This is what gives the fascial system its dynamic, springy quality. Ground substance plays a critical role in hydration, nutrient transport, and the transmission of mechanical forces across the matrix. Researchers, including Gerald Pollack from the University of Washington, have proposed that structured water within the ground substance behaves as a fourth phase of water. more ordered than liquid water, with significant implications for cellular communication and bioenergetics. The architects of your connective tissue. Your fascia likes to flow, everywhere and always. Your tissue matrix and embodiment are continuously being built, rebuilt, and reorganized by specialized cells called fibroblasts. These cells exist in the billions throughout your body right now. They are in constant motion, migrating through the fascial matrix and depositing new collagen fibers based on one primary input, the mechanical stresses placed on your body. This process is governed by a principle known as mechanical transduction, which is the conversion of physical force into a cellular biological response. If you push, pull, or twist a tissue appropriately and repeatedly, the body will reinforce that tissue and that physical capacity. You could even say that fibroblasts are one manifestation of Qing/essence in traditional Chinese medicine. The converse is equally true and honestly more immediately relevant. Any habitual postures and repetitive movement patterns build collagen in patterns that can work against you. Sit at a desk for years with rounded shoulders and a flexed lumbar spine, and fibroblasts are busy laying down collagen that locks those positions in. This is not simply tight muscles, it is a physically woven collagen matrix. This cross-linked and disorganized scar tissue made of collagen are associated with conditions including chronic low back pain, frozen shoulder, adhesive capsulitis, plantar fasciitis, and myofascial pain syndrome. Research has demonstrated that dysfunctional fascia contains a higher density of myofibroblasts, the more contractile fibroblast variants, which can generate and maintain chronic tissue tension independent of the nervous system. This is mechanical transduction in its most potent and problematic form. Your body reads the pattern of stress and quietly, over years, building the structural hardware to execute it more efficiently. Your tissue becomes stronger and more efficient, or it becomes Velcro or stiff, or it becomes tight through contraction. Free energy, how fascia powers movement. One of the most functionally significant properties of the fascial system is its capacity for elastic energy storage and release. This is sometimes called free energy, in the sense that it is energy returned from elastic recoil rather than generated by active muscular contraction. This mechanism fundamentally changes the energetics of movement, and the evidence for it is remarkable. Researchers studying kangaroos placed them on treadmills with force plates and VO2 measurement masks, then had them hop at two different speeds, 3 meters per second and 6 meters per second. The finding was extraordinary. The kangaroos burned the same amount of energy, hopping twice as fast. For a human runner, doubling speed would roughly double, or more than double, metabolic cost. For the kangaroo, the energy equation barely shifted. This elastic storage mechanism is well documented in human movement as well. The Achilles tendon in a running human stores and returns approximately 35% of the mechanical energy of each stride. The plantar fascia contributes an additional 17%. Together, these fascial structures are responsible for roughly half of the energy economy of human running. This finding reframes what fitness actually means at a tissue level. Collagen, elastin, and tissue-specific architecture. Not all connective tissue is built the same way. The fascial system deploys different collagen architectures depending on the functional demands of the region. Structures requiring high tensile strength with minimal stretch, your Achilles tendon being the prime example, are composed predominantly of densely packed, parallel-aligned type 1 collagen fibers. The architecture is stiff by design. Its job is to transmit force faithfully and not to deform. Structures that must accommodate significant dimensional change, like the fascial sheath of the abdominal wall, the peritoneum, The walls of visceral organs all contain proportionally higher concentrations of elastin, a protein that can stretch to roughly 150% of its resting length and return to baseline without structural damage. Elastin fibers are roughly 1,000 times more elastic than collagen fibers, and while collagen provides tensile strength, elastin provides the elastic recoil that returns a stretched structure to its resting shape. The degree to which these structures can expand without permanent deformation depends on their elastin content and hydration state, both of which are trainable and nutritionally modifiable. Fascia as pain conductor. One of the most clinically significant revolutions about modern fascia science is our understanding of pain. For decades, musculoskeletal pain has been primarily understood as either neural, nerve impingement, sensitization, or muscular, strain, spasm, trigger points. Fascia complicates both models and sits at the center of many pain presentations that neither the nerve or muscle model adequately explains. Fascia is densely innervated, with hundreds of millions of free nerve endings. It is one of the most sense-aware and therefore potent pain-generating tissues in the body. The delamination of collagen layers, which happens in spinal disc degeneration, exposes pain-sensitive structures and initiates inflammatory cascades. The collagenous outer ring of the intervertebral disc is a fascial structure. Its integrity depends on the quality, organization, and hydration of its collagen matrix. This is why the 80% lifetime prevalence of low back pain in the general population is not simply a muscle problem or a nerve problem. It is, in large measure, a fascia problem. Back pain is most often the result of sustained postures and movement patterns that load fascial structures in directions and magnitudes they were not built to sustain. Your heroic fascia will also engage peripheral sensitization, a state in which the threshold for pain signaling is chronically lowered. In fibromyalgia, chronic myofascial pain, and widespread musculoskeletal pain syndromes, fascial sensitization is increasingly recognized as a primary mechanism, not merely a secondary consequence. Retraining your fascia. If a fascia is trainable, the evidence is clear that it is. Then the question becomes, what kind of training builds the fascial system most effectively? The answer, in broad terms, is multidirectional, varied load movement. The fascial system is not a straight-line structure, like most muscle. It wraps, spirals, crosses, and connects tissues across all planes of motion. Training that loads only the lifting is straight lines, like squats, deadlifts, bench press, or running in straight lines, builds collagen in only those directions and neglects the diagonal, rotational, and lateral vectors through which the body also moves and generates force. This is the mechanical explanation for what practitioners have long described anecdotally. Why farm workers, construction workers, and masons possess a quality of functional strength that gym training does not fully replicate. Their daily work loads connective tissue in an enormous variety of directions, magnitudes, and durations, which is the precise stimulus for diverse, robust fascial architecture. Fascia researcher Tom Myers, whose anatomy trains model maps the body's major myofascial meridians, has argued that effective fascial training must work along these longitudinal chains, lines of tensional transmission that cross multiple joints and run the length of the body. Movement patterns that load these chains in their full range, under controlled tension, provide the multidirectional stimulus that builds elastic, well-organized fascial tissue. Equally important is the time dimension. Collagen remodeling is slow. Research suggests that collagen turnover in tendons and ligaments occurs over months to years, not days to weeks, as happens with muscle growth. This means fascial adaptation requires patience and consistency at timescales that most training programs do not explicitly account for. It also means that fascial injury, the disorganized collagen laid down after trauma or chronic overload, takes proportionally longer to resolve. The practical upshot is this. The fascia system is not passive support tissue. It is a dynamic, trainable, sensory-rich, energy-storing, pain-conducting matrix that sits at the center of how the body moves, performs, and ages. Training that does not address it explicitly is training with a major variable unaccounted for. If you are interested in learning about the oldest no approach to training your fascia, it is called the muscle tendon change, or Yi Jin Jing. This system is one of the most tangibly effective and valuable practices I have ever learned.